Imagine a classroom where AI tailors lessons. This isn't science fiction. It's happening now. AI is reshaping education, offering personalized learning experiences that were once unimaginable. Welcome to the Edgemont AI Forum. Tonight we will hear from parents, teachers, a board member, and students. Just some general rules we ask you to follow. We want to give each person time to speak. If you're going on too long, Dr. Hamilton will give a gentle nudge and ask you to wrap up. We will follow the elbow rule tonight. Enough, Les, move on. Dr. Hamilton's assistant, Jennifer, will raise elbow, and that is her cue to wrap up. We are looking forward to a lively dialogue. Educators, students, and tech experts are discussing AI's role in schools. From enhancing learning to raising ethical questions, AI's impact is profound. Let's explore these diverse perspectives and understand its potential. Teachers are at the forefront of AI integration. They share stories of AI tools boosting student engagement and simplifying administrative tasks. Yet challenges remain, like ensuring equitable access and maintaining human connection. Students have mixed feelings about AI. While some appreciate the personalized learning, others worry about privacy and data security. It's crucial to address these concerns to foster a supportive learning environment. Parents are hopeful yet cautious about AI in education. They see potential in AI supporting their children's learning, but worry about ethical implications. Balancing innovation with responsibility is key to gaining their trust. Ethical considerations are paramount. Schools must ensure AI tools are used responsibly, respecting student privacy and promoting fairness. By addressing these issues, we can create a safe and inclusive educational landscape. AI experts suggest best practices for integrating AI in schools. Community input is vital in shaping policies that reflect shared educational values. Together, we can harness AI's potential while safeguarding our children's future. Join the conversation and make your voice heard. By collaborating, we can ensure AI in education aligns with our values and enhances learning for all. Let's shape a future where technology and education thrive together.
Good evening, I am Dr. Kenneth R. Hamilton, Superintendent of Schools, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's AI Forum. Is that a pretty good invitation? Good evening, everyone. I have been playing around with AI, and I have to give credit to our students for encouraging me to do that, so I would have some frame of reference for this conversation tonight. This evening I'll be moderating the conversation. Our goal tonight is to explore how AI is shaping education from various perspectives, and to use this insight gathered tonight to inform the development of policy in our district and to ensure AI integration in teaching and learning. AI is the most significant new technology in the modern age. It has surpassed Facebook and TikTok with hundreds of millions of users. A recent study by the Walton Family Foundation showed that more than 89% of students, 81% of teachers, and 84% of parents say AI has positively affected education. Teacher reaction varied from early adopters who want to support students in the use of AI to pessimists who harbor general fears about maintaining data privacy and not violating student privacy information. My research has identified six chief challenges with AI. One, biased algorithms which are heavily developed by white males and lead to the absence of racially diverse depictions of AI responses. And I want to share an example of me just testing this theory and preparing for it this evening. I asked AI to generate a picture of a superintendent. I put in my age, my height, my weight, age, height, weight, that's it. And that was the picture that came up. So it kind of confirms that there are certain biases in algorithms that AI refers to. The next slide shows the only descriptor I put in, and I just added black to the same thing. And that was the image that it created. The second issue with AI is there are some unintended consequences. Many AI languages models such as ChatGPT falter in addressing these biased algorithms. Corporations tied to these models either establish policies that tend to ignore controversial topics when it comes to user prompts, or otherwise water down the responses. The result is a potentially rewriting of historical events and inaccurate and inappropriate responses. The third issue is unequal access. Lack of access to AI systems for marginalized students poses a continuing threat to a widening gap in student achievement and success. The fourth, lack of research. AI systems evolve at an alarming rate, and research on these new tools is limited as a result of academia, which is slow to respond to the demand of high-level research and the efficacy of such systems. The fifth, deep fake and fake news. AI's large language models are capable of hallucinating answers to questions on subjects where they have no knowledge or information. And lastly, there's incongruency with curriculum publishing companies who are not yet on board with the use of AI content in large language platforms. However, they do encourage customers to use their own implementation of AI in conjunction with the company's resources. Before we move into our discussion this evening, I want to start with a few basic rules. We want to ensure a respectful and productive discussion. I've already met with the panel, so they are aware of what these expectations are tonight. We will respect everyone's views. We will stay on topic and keep contributions relevant to AI and education. Each panelist will have a few minutes for their introductory remarks, and we will follow the Elmo principle tonight, which is enough, let's move on. If you see Jennifer hold up Elmo, that's your signal to wrap up your final thoughts, and let's move on with our conversation. And then after our panel discussion, we'll open the floor to audience questions, and if you'd like to ask a question, just raise your hand, and we will be sure that your voice is heard. I want to take a moment to thank Jennifer, who has been my right hand with organizing today. You've been getting emails and alerts from her, and the administrative body is here. And I appreciate your time this evening, and of course, members of the Board of Education who are here this evening. So let's move on to the introduction of our panelists. To my immediate left, Gaurav Jaswal. He is a solution architect at NYPA, which is New York Port Authority, specializing in data analysis and AI. He's a 25-year tech veteran who holds a computer science degree and an MBA in finance. At NYPA, he leads the development and implementation of data-driven solutions, optimizing operations, and enhancing decision-making in the energy sector. He resides in Edgemont with his wife and his son Ryan. He balances his passion for technology with family life. He enjoys exploring the outdoors, reading, and staying current with the latest tech advancements. He is also a key contributor to NYPA's digital transformation. Jerry Christie is a speaker, writer, and consultant, focusing on the opportunities and challenges of using AI in education. He is also the host of AI in 30, a monthly news program that covers current issues and breaking news about AI. He also explores its impact in schools in New York State. Jerry is also an EdTech pioneer, previously serving as the Director of Instructional Technology and Innovation and the Co-Director for the Center of Innovation for the Scarsdale Public School System. Jerry has worked and been profiled in several publications and national media outlets. He also enjoys speaking out about the future of instructional technology and has given keynote speeches at school districts, universities, and corporations, as well as technology and educational conferences. Jerry has a BA from Rutgers College, Rutgers University, a dual MS from the University of Pennsylvania, and a CAS in Administration from Teachers College, Columbia University. Next is Thomas Sheridan. Thomas is passionate about blending AI, sales, and education. With a BE in computer engineering from the City College of New York and an MBA from Arch College, he is now an adjunct professor at CCNY's Grove School of Engineering and vice president of sales enablement, where he helps teams boost revenue with AI. He has also presented at the Sales Enablement Summit in New York City, speaking on AI and sales. When he is not working, Thomas enjoys life in the suburbs with his wife and 2 daughters who attend Greenville. Dr. Anka Saylor is an IBM Distinguished Engineer at T.J. Watson Research Center, where she partners with client providers, open communities to help transform their regulatory processes into an engineering practice leveraging the latest AI technology. Dr. Saylor received her PhD in computer science from Sorbonne University in France and applied her PhD work at Bell Labs before joining IBM Research in 2003. She holds over 100 patents, co-authored in IEEE and ACM. She has spoken at conferences, been featured in journals and books on cloud and IT management topics. Her interests include AI, compliance, digitalization, and she is a senior member of IEEE and an aspiring 46er. And our student panelists. Henry Goldrich is a senior and has a strong passion for technology. He loves researching computers, learning about the theory behind them, and applying those theories. This has led to him building computers and programming for fun. Henry finds machine learning interesting because of its scalability and numerous applications. He uses large language models responsibly and understands the best way to utilize them when aiding in his learning. In addition to his knowledge of how it theoretically works behind the scenes, he believes his perspective can be very helpful for tonight's panel discussion. Elise Blumberg is a sophomore at EHS and is interested in AI and its impact on students. Elise is passionate about technology, leadership, and exploring how AI shapes our lives. She looks forward to discussing the potential of AI and its future implications for Edgemont. Nilesh Jain has had long 25 years run as a professional in capital markets as research analyst, institutional equity sales, and fund management. He stepped off the professional treadmill in 2020 and now serves as trustee for the Edgemont Board of Education over the last 6+ years. He is a board member for the Southern Westchester BOCES board as well, and a member of the STEM Alliance and the Marinac. He volunteered, which is a volunteer advisory board member and a graduation coach at the Yonkers Partner in Education. Essay and finance aid coach at Yonkers Charter School. And if this is not enough, Nilesh is going back to school. He is currently doing a master's in education in policy and social analysis at Teacher College in Columbia. Finn Roy is a 7th grade student at EHS. Finn is excited to be here and hopes to be able to help as best as he can. Finn has a love of technology and recently explored more about AI. AI is now involved in most of Finn's at-home projects, such as the functional spotlight using the help of ChatGPT to code it and make it more fun to race around his house. Finn enjoys how AI helps him fix paragraphs, as this is one that he loves, and he also loves reading. Finally, Finn extends his thanks for this amazing opportunity. Finn is also a representative on the Superintendent's Student Advisory Council, where he has made an incredible contribution. Michael Del Vito is the chairperson for the Edgemont High School English Department and has been teaching English for over 30 years, 24 of them right here in Edgemont. He has a master's degree in literature and a master's degree in creative writing, both from the City University of New York. He is also a father of an Edgemont junior. Jill Guzzi is a speech-language pathologist who currently works with students in Greenville, Silly Place, and Edgemont Junior Senior High School. She has 20 years of experience as a speech-language pathologist working in a variety of settings, including medical, preschool, home-based, and specialized private schools. Jill is interested in continuing to explore the ways in which technology can enhance the lives of her students and improve accessibility for individuals with special needs. And last but not least, Jonathan Espinoza. Jonathan is our network administrator for the Edgemont School District and has a background in cybersecurity and digital forensics. Staying up to date when it comes to AI in education and how our faculty, administrations, and students will use it, or how it should not be used, is a critical aspect of his role as the massive shift in technology and resources occurs. As someone who has grown up watching films like The Terminator and The Matrix, he errs on the side of caution when it comes to unleashing AI and its possible implications. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. So as you can see, we have a distinguished group of various stakeholders who I think bring a wealth of knowledge and experience and perspectives to this conversation. Before I move on to my questions, I'm going to ask Jared if he would come up and share some information that I think will be beneficial to this conversation and reflects the work that he has been doing in this arena. Jared?
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton, and thank you for the Edgemont community for inviting me. I spent many years, 32 years exactly, in Scarsdale, your neighbor, and worked very closely with Edgemont teachers and partners on professional development and things like that. So I'm really honored to be here tonight, and also to see you in this forward-thinking way, not only including parents, community members, but also I'm so excited that you're here tonight. I'm going to give you just a 5 or 6 minute overview of artificial intelligence, because invariably in any of these presentations, there are people in the audience who are just beginners who may not fully understand, or maybe you don't understand how it works. How many people, if you raise your hand, would say they are experts in AI at this point? Pretty well. Excellent, great, there's some experts out there. How many people would say you're just beginners, you're just starting out? A lot of you, okay, that's why we're doing this presentation. Thank you. So, let's begin. First of all, when we talk about artificial intelligence, I want to just back up a little bit when we talk about that term, because AI really encompasses a broad number of other areas that are subdomains from it. So within artificial intelligence, there are areas, let me flip this forward, areas that include things like robotics and voice recognition, speech recognition, computer vision, etc. Those are all underneath this general umbrella of artificial intelligence. We talk about it. And if you think about artificial intelligence, we've actually been using it for many, many years. For those of you that have the Google app, for example, on your phone, you know that you can take it, you've been able to do this for several years, click and point on something in your environment, and it will tell you what it is. In this case, I'm identifying a plant. And programs like Google Translate have also been around for many, many years. But on November 30th in 2022, something happened that will change the course of society forever. ChatGPT was released to the public just under 2.5 years ago. Amazing, that's only been that short a time. And when ChatGPT came out, we suddenly had a new kind of AI that people heard about called generative AI. AI that can make things or generate things. Here's the difference of what generative AI can do now in the Google app. This is a picture of some kind of an insect nest that was on my front lawn. This time I took a picture of it with the Google app, and Google uses generative AI. It doesn't just tell me what it is, but it actually writes, it composes a description of what that was. It says it was a hornet's nest. That's all written completely by AI. And of course, we can use AI to write anything. I put in, pretend that I'm an immigrant that just arrived at Ellis Island from Ireland. What do I see? And the AI will write pages and pages about that description. You can have it write a report on pretty much any topic you can imagine. This is my definition of AI. There is no one definition of generative AI, but I like using this one with school groups. The use of technology to augment human intelligence, including the ability to simulate thinking. And that idea of simulating thinking is really very important about what we're discussing tonight. How does it work? Well, in a very simple nutshell, it uses something called a large language model, which basically means that it goes onto the internet and scrapes thousands and thousands and millions of websites of anything that's publicly available And then that data is trained to help the AI determine the relationship between different words. And this is something that it might do. If it was writing a sentence, the dog jumped over the, you'll see that it has to pick the next likely word that would complete that sentence. In this case, the word fence has a higher value than any of the other words. So it's generating these sentences, generating these words, almost like automatically, using probability. The computer, the AI, has no idea what a dog is, what a fence is, what it means to jump over something, but is able to write that sentence anyway. And that's a really important concept that we're going to talk about as we talk about its use in schools. So these are the big ideas. AI simulates human thinking. It sounds convincing, but it really doesn't understand fundamentally what it's saying. And it's based on probability, so while it is likely to be correct, it sometimes produces false information, which is known in the field as hallucination. You may have heard that term. Well, what else can AI do? Well, in addition to using text, it can also write programs, and write computer programs. It can create images. Here's an example. If I want to create a widescreen image, a wide image, of a beautiful fall day in the Adirondack Mountains of New York, make sure to feature the foliage and a cabin at the edge of a shimmering lake. And I do that within a few seconds. This is the $20 paid version. It will generate a beautiful picture like that. But that's not all. You can generate any image with any material. So for example, I could say, generate an image of a cat made out of stained glass. And as you can see here, that's beautiful detail. Here's our cat made out of stained glass. You can generate things that don't even exist, and AI will do that for you. It's not so good at math or representing numbers because it's a large language model. It's great with words but not with numbers. So in this example that I generated, it shows a beautiful hourglass, but I don't know what 125 o'clock is. It has no concept about numbers or numeracy, really. And as Dr. Hamilton pointed out, because it's trained on the data that's found on the internet that represents our culture, it has gender and cultural stereotypes. So for example, if I ask it to create a picture of 3 engineers, it creates 3 white males as engineers because that's its image of what engineers look like based on the images on the internet. And of course, there are many different companies that offer the services of AI. We know about ChatGPT, that's the most popular. The Google's AI is called Gemini. Microsoft has a version called Copilot. There's Claude, which is a derivative that came from OpenAI, the company that made ChatGPT. And then even ones that are good for consumers like Perplexity, which combines artificial intelligence and a search engine. So if I go on Perplexity and say, talk about the life cycle of a butterfly, it will go on the internet and use AI to create information. But the interesting thing here is that it also footnotes. It provides footnotes for that information as a reference. So once again, many different kinds of models using AI. And of course, the question for us tonight is, what does this mean for education? You know, what does it mean for education? What does it mean for the future of schools? What does it mean really for the future of society? And that's something we need to contemplate as we're here with this distinguished panel. Thank you so much.
Part of the idea for getting more information and perspectives on this actually came directly from students. In my conversations with students, I was asking them about AI and are they using it, how are they using it? And students are using it to varying degrees, and some feel that they have the liberty to use it, some don't necessarily feel that they can use it freely. And so the boundaries are not clear on how best to integrate and use technology in the form of AI specifically. So what I hope we will accomplish when we develop our policy is some parameters and reasonable expectations about how students can effectively use AI and what are the appropriate boundaries as educators that we need to establish for them, prioritizing some of the limitations that we already know exist, and particularly as it relates to protecting student privacy. So I'm going to pose a series of questions to our panelists. The questions are scripted, however, I fully expect I will deviate from the script based on conversations or responses from our panelists. And I'm going to actually start with a parent question. And the first question is, what concerns do you hope or have about AI's role in your child's education? Now keep in mind our panelists have extreme experience from various perspectives. And so in response to the question, if there's something else you'd like to share, feel free to do so. Why don't we start with you, Thomas?
Does this work?
Yep.
Yep.
You're on.
All right. Repeat the question again.
What concerns or hopes do you have about AI's role in your child's education?
It's a good question. So I'm saying this as a parent, also kind of as an adjunct professor too at the City College of New York. I actually have very little concerns with my two girls. I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. They see me playing with ChatGPT and AI. I let them go nuts with it. It's like I want them to have fun with it. Right now I'm not stressed out about it. They also understand like the value of like just putting in the work and getting it done. They know that they can use ChatGPT as a shortcut or for cheating. I think cheating has been around for hundreds of years. I will be the first to be honest and said I absolutely relied on cheating to get through high school, middle school, college, grad school. I probably shouldn't say it because it's being recorded, but like it's never going to go away, and so I'm not worried about that. I think there is a huge opportunity on the teacher side of the house to embrace AI, because like I personally use AI to see how I could do my job better and get coaching from AI because I report to a C-level exec and I'm just not going to get their time to get feedback and coaching, right? So where else am I going to get it from? I'm going to leverage AI. And I think that's a huge opportunity for teachers, right? If they can get coaching and feedback at scale in terms of how they can be delivering whatever they're delivering better and more effectively, then I'm all for that. And that in turn impacts my daughters and their friends and all the kids of Edgemont, because I think we all want a world-class education. That's why we moved to Edgemont years ago. And I think that's going to be the edge, in the years and decades to come, right? Like, how do we also make sure, and I think we always forget like teachers in the equation, but how do we make sure teachers are getting the right coaching, the right feedback, the right insight so that they're doing their job better. The other thing I'll say is that, from a student perspective, like I also want to make sure like they're working on stuff that's AI proof. So I was talking about this with Ms. Ferrara, Principal Ferrara. The one thing I found in my teaching experience that's actually AI proof is Harvard case studies. Now, they make that for undergrad and graduate students, and if you're not familiar with Harvard case studies, please look it up. But I've personally tried completing written responses to these Harvard case studies using AI, and I'm failing at it as the professor, right? Like I'm trying to just cheat using my own content or Harvard's content, and it's not working. So I think that's going to be another thing for like the school district to think about. If we're assigning homework to our kids, or if we're assigning projects to our kids, like how do we build a project or an assignment that you actually can't use AI for, right? Or very little for. And I think that's going to be fun to figure out. And now I'm getting the element. Shut up.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
So I agree with with Thomas. My son, he's a he's a 9th grader, and he uses AI predominantly for ChatGPT stuff. A few things done. And my only advice to him and the older student is that you can ask ChatGPT and pretty much you're going to get the answers, for everything which you're going to ask. But at the end of the day, you have to really understand, what responses you got from ChatGPT. And then you're doing projects or your assignments in the school, you don't just copy paste right? And hopefully, the teachers are also getting smarter. They know that they're using AI, and they will find out if they just copy paste it and really not understood. But nonetheless, I tell him all the time, you really have to understand the concept, right? Because that's where it's going to help you in the future, not just completing your assignments or just right. But AI is a wonderful technology, and I really feel that all of us are very lucky to be in this era where AI is. So responsible use of AI is.
The last word on this question, okay?
So when I'm thinking about AI for context of education, I am looking primarily of how we can enhance the experience of today, and particularly I'm looking at how we can personalize the experience for kids. So particularly for children that have special needs, and identifying early that they have special needs. And I think AI can help a lot in this context and provided input for the specialized personnel for doing that. I'm also looking at helping getting an experience that is differentiated between kids that are more introverted and will know they will need like a smaller team for a project versus the extroverted kids that will like to come together. And having all this fine tuning can help. I'm looking for this type of experience. I am, of course, my day job as Dr. Hamilton shared is on using AI technology for regulatory. I'm working with the National Institute of Standard and Technology on providing the AI policy. It's already available. Of course, it's very generic. I think that we have team members here that help tuning all that for the context of education. But primarily, what that would provide and what I'm working towards to make this AI safe is, first of all, controls in place. So, like transparency or the provenance of the data sources. We need to know what we are using for. So those being in place, and we are in early ages, not everybody has that. Second, will be benchmarks. So we are working for providing for any type of technology that will go out there in AI benchmarking. And if you're not familiar with the term, is providing standard tests so that we can see the parameters of behavior of AI, so that we are able to say, okay, this is safe, this is not safe. So I hope as we adopt AI at Edgemont and the technology to look for those things. Is this benchmark? Does it have the certifications of the controls from, that is required? And one last point, right? I educate my kids about the risks. And I don't think this is specific to AI. I think it's in general with anything else. When you teach them to drive a car, it's the same approach. Make them aware of the risks. And all the benchmarking and control that we discussed about all flow out of the risks that have been identified.
Perfect, thank you. Next, I'm going to ask a student question, and I'm going to start with you, Elise, and just kind of hear, do me a favor, Jonathan, you can actually turn off the screen at this point. I don't think we need it anymore. And Amy, if you could light it up a little bit, just so I could see the kids better. Elise, so talk to me about how you think AI helps or hinders the learning process for critical thinking.
I think a big issue that I guess students can come around to with AI is that they can develop like a dependence on it, and using it sort of for specific pieces of the process has different problems. If you use it for brainstorming, then you're losing that piece of the work for yourself. If you're not really getting the experience of sort of coming up with your own ideas yourself. If you're using it to create an outline to help you write something, then you're not really understanding, or you're not learning for yourself how to structure things. So any piece you use it for, there's something you're going to be losing out on. But I think the biggest thing for me about students with AI is that students really don't have the tools to understand how to use AI and how to prompt AI. And so, like, allowing students to use AI in some cases without sort of showing them how to prompt or how to use it in a proper way where they don't sort of misuse it or accidentally or intentionally sort of use it beyond sort of what they're allowed to do is a big problem.
I think that's a very good point. Finn, you've been very vocal about the use of AI. So Finn, again, is in my advisory group and has really opened my eyes quite a bit from a student's perspective about AI. And I know you have some research you wanted to share as well. You want to talk about the research you conducted and its implications?
Yeah. Can Henry go?
Can you have what?
Can I pull it up?
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're doing that, I'm going to jump over to Henry for a second, okay? Then I'll come back to you. Henry, what excites you most about AI in schools?
I think the most useful thing that I found is it acting as more of an aid, and like anecdotally, I think for physics, that's an important thing for me, because I think if I'm learning, I don't want to memorize and then like produce things that I've kind of committed to memory, but I want to understand the content so that I can reason through problems and solve that way. So for this case, I could use it to understand certain concepts in a way that outside of school I wouldn't have access to except for having a tutor. And that backed by, like a textbook or other resources can help further understanding and learning. So I think it's exciting to know that there's more ways to learn and aid your learning instead of using it as a crutch.
Okay. Ben, you ready?
Okay. So when I collected some data, I figured out that a lot of students are using AI more inside of high school and more inside and outside of high school than they are in middle school. And at the same time, I think that also you could see how, I can see how students use, in all grades, students use AI a lot more outside of school than inside. And also, I collected data on how students use AI. So in terms of how students used AI inside of school, it was mostly used for things like checking grammar and research. Some other things in there were image making and math. And in terms of outside of school, a lot of kids use it for fun and still use it for research and imaging. So I think based on that, I think that AI is, like, there are some concerns around it, but I think if kids know how to use it responsibly, then there's not too much to worry about. But it's when kids start using it for purposes that they don't know how to use it for, and I think that's when people start to realize. I think that's when people start to realize, like, when it's not good and it's not good for use anymore, like cheating or using it, as Elise said, using it to write. Even if you use it for one part of your essay, it'll still like leave you out on that part, especially in the terms of like grammar checking. If you use AI all the time for checking your grammar, then you won't learn the fundamentals of grammar.
Mike, I'm going to ask you a question from a teacher's perspective.
Sure.
How have you kind of lifted the veil on AI in your instruction?
So the first answer to that question, and I thank Jerry for drawing the distinction between performative AI and generative AI. So performative AI we've been using for a long time. When I talk with my classes about how to design a search in a database, for example, we're really using an AI tool to find the perfect article that you're looking for. In my classroom, which is an English classroom, generative AI is actually outlawed. And the reason it's outlawed is because somebody mentioned academic integrity. I think it's important to look at why academic integrity is important. It's not, as it probably sometimes seems, because teachers want to be the moral police, but it's about process. The product, the essay that a student writes, is really not the point. But the process by which the student goes about writing that essay is the point. I don't care, and I'm sorry, Elise, to say this, I don't care a whole lot about what you ultimately say about the authorial voice in their eyes when watching God. I care intensely, though, about your process in saying that. So I was glad to hear you say that you understand that, you know, the brainstorming process has to be something that you engage in, because obviously, as you said, you learn how to do these things better. But in addition to that, what's really important, and I'm learning this because I'm doing a lot of reading lately on brain development and the connection between synaptic development and literacy, and how reading helps the brain develop and writing helps the brain develop. So I actually am very worried that if we become too dependent on AI as students, that we're going to sacrifice some of that synaptic development that we're gaining from short-circuiting the process, as though the product were more important than the process, because the product is infinitesimally important compared to the process.
I think that's an amazing distinction. Jill, how have you found it to be useful as an educator?
So mostly in my role, I found it to be useful to support my work with students in terms of being able to adapt. I work more with students one-on-one or in groups, and I'm looking to adapt their curriculum to better fit their needs. And also, so I've used it on my end if I need to create data sheets in order to collect data, even if I'm struggling with a student who's maybe exhibiting certain behaviors in my sessions and I want to know what can I do to help them. You can type in a list of behaviors that a child is exhibiting, and it'll give you strategies to use to support the student to match those behaviors. So although I could come up with those strategies probably on my own, but we know that time is often limited and my resources could be used in other ways. So it's really helped on my end in terms of creating resources for my students, helping to support them in more efficient and better ways as well.
Jonathan, one of your responsibilities, of course, is to contemplate what needs teachers may have around AI and simultaneously protect the district from any vulnerabilities. What's been the biggest challenge you've experienced so far in our district?
Sure, it's our kids are too darn smart. And I mean that in a funny way, but also literally, it's in many situations, they're finding AI stuff I didn't know existed. And we wanted to make sure to have these conversations in a forum like this to say, all right, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, because I don't know sometimes, should I block all this? And then, as of right now, we kind of have for students at least, we're blocking everything, but teachers are finding useful tools, so there's times where we need to unblock it for a specific project for a limited period of time, but it's really come down to something new, which we haven't needed to do in the past, is I gotta just keep up with it. And it's really looking once a week and seeing, all right, what new things have popped up, or any of these concerning, because AI is not just in America, it's all over the world, and anyone can produce these websites. And it's been a lot of trial and error off the school network for safety purposes, and seeing, all right, what is this tool? What is this website? What is this AI? Especially with, as some of you have seen, a lot of these AI websites don't end in .com. They end in .io. So .com is primarily, it's an American site or a trusted site. .io can be anything from anywhere. It could be a game, it could be AI. So it's really just been a lot more labor intensive this year, but luckily the tech department, not just myself, we've really worked together at open communications, and we also work with BOCES and the Lyric, and if there's something on their radar, they're sharing it with us and vice versa. So it's just been a lot of making sure to focus and pay attention and observe. But when the teacher requests something, we talk to our director of technology, make sure he's okay with it, if he needs to. Like I said, these are all new things. We're checking with you, Dr. Hamilton, or a principal or another administrator. It's been really a lot of collaboration, but yeah, there's been some hurdles, for sure.
Yeah. Thomas, first of all, based on your experience, professionally and academia, I sense that you've had a lot of exposure to AI and maybe ahead of it in some ways than most of us. Do you think from an educational perspective we should put parameters on AI and restrict it, or should we be opening it up more for our students? And I appreciate Jill talking about using it as a management tool, because I think that's one level of it, to help teachers identify plans and strategies. That's one neat thing. But the academic integrity, particularly in a community like Edgemont, where our students are so smart, what are your thoughts about the boundaries that we should put on our students?
I don't think you can. I think that's the problem. DeepSeek came out like a few weeks ago and totally destroyed the stock market. I'm sure we all felt it in our 401ks. And the reason it had such a massive impact is, it changed the paradigm of what we thought about, like, how complicated AI was, and the fact that now it's open source. So you could try to restrict it, but I can install it on my phone. They're going to install it on their home computer. Like, there's just no way to block it, right? I think you have to think about it from the other perspective of, okay, how do we assign a student a homework assignment, a project, and do as much as we can to make it AI proof, right? So again, I go back to the Harvard case studies. I don't know what it is for each grade and for each subject, but I think that's going to be the challenge for teachers, for instructional designers, curriculum developers. When you're renewing your subscription with with any of these third-party curriculum developers, that'd be the first question I'd be asking, right? How is this curriculum being designed so that students will find it challenging to use ChatGPT or AI? Because I agree with everybody here on the panel. You learn something, you're building that brain muscle when you go through the struggle yourself. It's really easy to ask ChatGPT to write an essay, but to go through the pain yourself, to make the spelling mistakes, to fumble on the thesis statement or the conclusion. Now I'm recalling back all my bad memories from high school. But that's part of the experience of learning, right? And you miss that when you use AI as a shortcut. But there is no technological solution to not have it. It's going to be there. You could ban it in the school. You could block the internet, but they're still going to have it, right? You're just not going to know about it.
Rob, what are your expectations from the school about how we allow your children specifically to utilize AI? But do you want us to continue to use methods that challenge brain power? Or would you prefer that we allow students to use it to facilitate their learning in a way that helps them manage content and their time better?
I definitely think that the students are given the AI tools, whatever that is, ChatGPT or anything else, which is going to help them, doing their day-to-day assignments, tests, quizzes, whatever, and which would help them to learn more. Something, which probably they have not learned in the school or in the classroom. And I can take the example of my son, whatever he studies in the school, but then on top of it, he always opens up websites or ChatGPT, asks questions and learn from those as well. So what happens is, when you combine all the learnings, and then you have more knowledge and information on a particular topic. So I would 100% agree that the schools should encourage students to use AI.
Jerry, you've been traveling all across the country. What's been the most progressive approach you've experienced that schools have embraced around AI and students?
It's interesting. I think that clearly the concern from many teachers is the cheating issue that people have mentioned. But there is a way that districts are starting to embrace that using something called the AI assessment scale, which has been developed by a group out of Australia. And basically the idea is that every teacher, for every assignment, they use this scale, which has about 5 different parts to it. The first part's being that you can't use AI at all for this assignment. All the way through, you could use AI for anything. And then there are intermediate areas, like you could use AI for planning, or use AI for proofreading. I think that's a key piece because it helps students understand that there are certain things that you want them to use their own minds for. You don't want them to do what's called cognitive offloading, where they just rely on AI to do everything. However, AI offers this opportunity to do things that we couldn't imagine that could really be helpful to us. And so having the teacher communicate that to the student is really important. So if they're in a writing class, maybe you want students to struggle with the blank page first for a creative writing exercise. In that case, you could say, I don't want you to use AI for any piece of this. But if students are doing some kind of a science report, perhaps, it might be useful to have students have AI help them develop an outline, for example. So it's finding that sweet spot of, what should our thinking be versus what could AI as a tool be. And I'm probably the oldest one on this panel. I started my career, with computer education back in the 80s, and actually studied AI in 1985 in graduate school. Back then we thought AI would be kind of simulating a brain, unlike what it does now, which is really just copying information from the internet. But I can tell you, as someone who's worked in educational technology for 30 years, we go through these phases where, computers came out, and then what do? We put them in a computer lab where they're kind of safe from the rest of the school. And then when the internet came out, I actually had my librarian in Scarsdale come to me and said, you have to block Google. And I said, why do I have to block Google? He said, well, if students are going to Google, they'll never come to the library. Well, maybe we need to rethink why students are coming to the library. So there's always been this tension between allowing things and blocking things. And with ChatGPT, we're at such an incredible moment in technology. In some ways, it mirrors a historical pattern where you should block things, maybe let things through. And on the other hand, I want to ask you this question. Have you ever had a technology in our history that can create things? We never have. Every technology we have had has been something that served as a tool, right? Helps us do things. We never had anything that actually seemingly create knowledge. And that makes it so different, and that requires us to really think about education and this technology in a unique way.
Elise, do you think do you get conflicting messages from teachers about parameters around AI, and is it still fun to be a student right now?
I think depending on the class, it's definitely completely different. Like I know in my language class, we talked a lot about using AI, like specifically ChatGPT has like a speech function, and you can use that to sort of get real world experience, or not real world experience, but real experience of having a back and forth conversation, and it can give you real time corrections. If you make a grammar mistake, you can tailor it to your level. So it's there's definitely places where it's useful. Actually, I have Mr. DeVito for English, so we talked a lot about the sort of the zero tolerance, not using it in any step of the process for that. And I think the only real way besides like finding ways to prompt, I know we were talking about finding ways to prompt questions that AI can't really answer in the way that you were supposed to answer. The only other way to do it besides that is to regulate besides that, I think, is just to do more stuff in class rather than outside of class. But I think even then, it's like, how much class time are we losing to individual work rather than instruction, so that kids can do assignments without, so that teachers can understand that they're not using any sort of tools other than.
That's a very good point, because I heard some students say, and I've heard teachers say that, in some instances they'd rather kids have pen and paper in class to at least start certain assignments, which I get. But I also think that because kids have had so much technology, the mechanics of writing doesn't come as easily for them as it did for a older generation. Henry, would you be challenged by that if your teacher said, we're only going to do writing assignments, pen and paper in class? Is your handwriting and skills sophisticated enough?
Well, personally, my handwriting is really bad.
I can attest to that.
That would be a problem. And I type a lot faster than I can write, so that definitely be different. I I think definitely on pen and paper, it helps the thinking process. Last year when I was in Miss Earl's class, our in-class essays were all on pen and paper. And I think she was focusing more on, because we didn't really get a chance to edit, she was focusing more on our process and ideas that we could come up with and formulate then, rather than our like grammar and like English skills per se. So I feel like it was more about thinking. And when comparing like using computers and using computers versus pen and paper, I think that it really depends on the case. There's certain times where you really do want to be using pen and paper, especially for like an in-class essay where, you know, there's whatever. But using a computer can also speed up the process where you can get your thoughts out much faster and allow you to edit your ideas into a more complete final product.
So Finn, as our youngest panelist, and you probably had the least amount of handwriting instruction, did you think you could navigate writing your papers in class by hand?
I mean, personally, I think so. I mean, my handwriting is not the best, but I mean, yeah, I could. Preferably not, but I think that like sometimes it's just some kids have just been so into technology that it's just like physical writing isn't like doable because it just comes out as A, B, and C.
I get it. Mike, I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to go to you, Nilesh. As you listen to the kids talk about these challenges, and as an English teacher, do you think reverting back to some of those basics, writing papers out in class, do you think that slows down the teaching and learning process, or do you think the return to that kind of skill is important?
I'm sort of torn about that, but I lean against it because when we used to really have kids write in class, it creates a time pressure that is an enemy of good writing. I much prefer to have students write at home and to really carefully attend to their writing. And if I suspect that there's AI involved, I'll often say something, not punitively, just sort of recognizing the reality. And what happens is as you get to know kids in a class, you start to hear their voice a little bit, and that's ideal. And AI at this point, and I'm sure it's not going to stay this way, is pretty recognizable. It's been around for a couple of years. I can, if I read a paper that's written with AI, I'm usually pretty good at this point at recognizing that. The sentence structure has a certain repetitiveness. The tone is robotic, for lack of a better word. And you know, the more you sort of talk to kids about the need to relate to your reader as a human being, the more they buy into that because they want to be understood as well. And that's really, I think, the way we address it. Not so much to invent pressure-filled moments where you have to write in pen and ink, but just let's all remember that we're involved in a human endeavor here. And when you're writing something, you're communicating.
Perfect. I want to switch to policy for a minute. Go ahead, Penny. Something you want to add?
Just as a note, I'm going to go a little bit in, but I've been able, luckily, to type my notes on my computer, and I've had some teachers who just constantly keep on checking on me just because I type my notes on my computer, and I think some teachers just think of how kids are sometimes goofing off and staying off task. So I think when nowadays teachers have to constantly keep kids in check that they're staying on task and doing their work.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. So Nilesh, as somebody who is actively involved in policy, what information do you think you need to have in hand in order to be a responsible participant in developing policy around AI?
Okay, so good evening. So first of all, again, thank you for bringing all the stakeholders together, because hearing all different voices will truly help the board, and I'm delighted that we have all the board members here. I'm also very happy to see that we have all principals, vice principals, the admin, so I really thank you all for coming for this evening, and it shows the importance that we as a board, as a school, are getting into AI. So one, it's an extremely important thing. From a board perspective, what I really care about is, if I kind of put few principles, then one, to me, any technology, not just AI, has to be fair. And what I mean is, it should be used by every student. We should not have a case where, say, one English teacher in one class is using AI and other is not using AI, because then you're not being fair and equitable. So I want a policy, I want a structure which can be fair and equitable. I also want to be supportive, because this is the need of the time. Today and tomorrow we will see the whole scenario of the work scenario change. You'll have AI workers, you'll have everybody will be using it, so I want to be supportive about the whole thing. I also want it to be effective, because I don't want a situation where we have to compromise ethics, and we have to compromise learning skills, and we have to compromise critical skills, and the students are not prepared. So schooling is not the goal, schooling is just a journey. College is going to be a journey. The destination is you as an adult, and if you're not successful in being successful when you become an adult, then this whole journey is a waste of time. So I want it to be effective, and finally I want it to be efficient. So I want teachers to use it, because if it can release some burden of administration from their work and they can give more time to the students, I think it's an efficient process. So I like the point which Anka made about using these tools, about making it more supportive and efficient. So having said all that, from my perspective and from the board perspective, these are the things that I'm looking for. I'm just more keen to listen to more of these voices as we go into the second half of the presentation. So thank you.
Anka, I know you've been intimately involved in policy development, and how do you go about taking something that is so big and has implications beyond the policy itself? It can have implications on integrity, student integrity, have implications on student privacy, have implications on other policies that are already in place. Tell me about your experience with developing policies that have such broad implications.
Yeah, it's been a tough task, and I think in some sense...
No, that was put to Anka.
Oh.
No problem, I'll give you the mic afterwards.
So yes, it's particularly with AI. So I've been doing more in the healthcare context. Although there we have as well ethics being involved, but with AI it kind of exploded. So as a technical person, it's the first time, and I've been with IBM for more than 20 years, it's the first time we created a committee of ethics. Because we live a time where the ethics themselves are redefined. So while doing this work for AI, we have to redefine how our society is looking at ethics, what are the fundamentals of our morality, and bringing that as reflected in the policy for AI itself. It has been a very complex journey from this point of view. Definitely nowhere we had the opinion that should stop. And personally, I think that train left the station when the Industrial Revolution happened. And on the question whether we should leave AI or not, I think in time, and I think with AI faster than with the other technology, we will get in place those leverages to help us with the risk, to support us in what's. I mean, if you are looking at Waze, right? Using Waze, it detects that I'm moving, and you should not type while driving. Okay, so this type of support, I think, is going to come as part of the technology itself, making you aware of the risk. But at the end of the day, like with any other technology, it's not the technology itself that is ethical or not; it's how we use it.
Perfect. I appreciate that experience. I'm interested in hearing from more from our parents about some of the ethical issues that I think we face. So we've heard from our students, and one of the things that I think we're kind of in this weird space about is whether or not we should be going back to teaching kids cursive and whether or not it's a dying art and kids still need it. And I venture to say, even based on some of the conversation tonight, maybe our kids do still need some of those skills. But from a parent perspective, how far do you think we should go? Should we border on the side of conservatism and revert back to some of our former teaching methods? Or should we go full speed ahead and just go full speed with technology, including AI as a tool? Rob, you want to start us off?
Sure. I think, it should be the combination of both. And, the traditional way of teaching, and, the new approach and AI is going to be, AI is not going to be, right? So it's better that, we adapt it as quickly as possible and, put AI and technology to use in terms of education. So, your question, we have to, go full-fledged. Well, it depends, where the school is, and it depends on school to school. Not every school is at the same level in terms of adopting AI or the technology. So it depends, where the students are also in the school, right? So it depends on those factors and probably more. But I'd say one step at a time. Go slow, like not a big bang approach. Give everything to the student, hey, just approach it and so and that connects to your previous question also in terms of the restrictions. Yes, we have to put some restrictions, although probably Tom is not agreeing to it. And we don't know how to put it, but there is a way to put the restrictions also in terms of use of the AI and technology.
Tom, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, can you repeat the question again?
I'm trying to get a sense of how far do we need to go away from the traditional teaching method?
Yeah.
Because AI is growing so fast, it's growing faster than even the developers anticipated. So how far do we go with that? Or do we need to go back to basics in some extent?
There's a few angles to look at it, right? One way I look at it is like property values, right? Like what do property values have to do with anything? Well, the property values reflect, I think, especially like in Edgemont and everywhere else, especially in New York, like the quality of the school district. And I know, there's some school districts or private schools like the Waldorf where, if you look at like the top executives from like Meta and, these other top tech companies, they're sending their kids to these schools, and these schools, their value proposition is no tech, right? The teachers don't use it, the students don't use it. It's 100% traditional, right? Like, hey, you're gonna actually handwrite that essay, and it's gonna be super bad handwriting, but you're gonna do it. And same with like physics, chemistry, and everything else. And there's value in that. And then I think if we were to ask ourselves, like, what are the top school districts in the future going to look like? They're probably going to either be on that end of the spectrum or on the other end. But on the other end, like, it's not just, hey, let's just give everyone like a ChatGPT license and go nuts. Like, you're going to have to look at like proper AI infrastructure. So as an example, right, like, grading essays is hard, and I do it, and it's tough. But having the technology to, let's say, scan everyone's homework assignments and then to ask AI, like, hey, is there a theme here, right? Like, what are all the students doing well? And what are all the students, like, not doing well? So that I, as a teacher, can leverage that tech and then personalize my instruction and drive more of an impact moving forward. Like, that's amazing. And I would love for my kids or my future kids to be in a school district that had that type of capability for their teachers, right? So again, it's not just like what the students have access to, but it's also what the teachers have access to. Like, what are we giving to the teachers so that they have the tools, the technology, the infrastructure, so that they can be better teachers. I do not think in a million years we'll ever replace teachers with bots. I think that would be a nightmare. I too do not want to learn from ChatGPT. I've tried. It's painful. Like when I teach as an adjunct from a college perspective, like I am asking for feedback, right? I don't have like my dean or any other professors sitting in on my class. They don't really do that on a college level anyway. But yeah, if I'm recording my class on Zoom, I will throw it into AI and then ask AI like, hey, like what did I do well? What did the students most resonate with during my discussions with my students? What could I have done differently or better? Right now, we can't ask that question. A lot of schools can't. I would say probably 100% of the schools can't. So it's like, okay, well, phase one is how do we just build that infrastructure out? How do we build the technology so that we're capturing that information so that we could even ask the question, so that we can even ask the prompt? And that's like the theme with like every company, right? For all the parents here that are in the stadium or in the auditorium or at home watching, right? You see your companies trying to like collect more data, collect more insights, and they're trying to ask those questions that they couldn't ask before. But you need the data first. You need the intelligence first. Schools generate a lot of data, right? From the homework assignments, from the projects, from the actual lessons being delivered to you. So you need to think about how do we capture that first, and then you can add the AI layer on top of that, make the teachers more productive. That's how I think about it.
Mike, from a teacher's perspective, I'm going to ask you the same question, Jill. Do you think adding the responsibility of needing to check student work for whether or not AI is being used adds to the teacher load, or does it help facilitate more authentic grading and assessment?
I think it's part of a very multifaceted process of reading student work that, as someone said before, cheating's been around for a while. We've always been alert to the possibilities of it, and it's part of grading any paper. But I think, when you have buy-in from your students, and if you can sort of manage that, and your students sort of trust you to be a human receiver, it becomes less of a problem. So I would say overall, I think the burden is not great, but the reason it's not great is because we've built into our instruction, I'm hoping this is true anyway, that we've built into our instruction enough discussion about the need for genuineness and authenticity.
Jill, what do you think? And after Jill, if there are questions from the audience, we have 2 microphones that will be able to share with you to ask your questions. If not, I'll continue on with the panel. Jill?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer because there is so much variability, in what people are teaching throughout the school building and throughout grade levels. But yeah, ultimately, I think if you set the guidelines and different subjects are going to have different parameters around using AI and how AI can be used, and if maybe there's an AI tool to check if a child has used AI or a student has used AI. So I think there's so much variability. I mean, I'm thinking from a high school English class down to a kindergarten teacher, there's going to be so much different ways that AI can be used and permitted or not be used. So I think there might not be one short answer to that question, or say it could be a bigger responsibility, but at the same time it's hard to say there's so much variability in what people are teaching and the parameters.
Are there any questions from the audience? There's a few.
Hi, we can also
the mic.
Sorry, I'll give you
the mic over here.
Hi, my name is Daljeet sir. I have a question for you, Dr. Hamilton and Nilesh. Specifically, given AI is a reality today, it's a 2-part question, and simply, what is the school district doing today in terms of enabling the students to benefit in terms of feedback, personalized feedback for their own development? And secondly, for curriculum design that meets the needs of today's education, not yesterday's, not like 3 months back. Today's education, preparing the kids for tomorrow, right? Essentially, what is school doing today to offer personalized feedback, and secondly, for curriculum design that is catered today. With the tools availability, with access available in a school district like ours.
Well, to begin, I think our teachers are well versed. We have an entire committee of people who work on identifying what professional development needs are and how we connect those professional development needs with the best evidence-based research around educational practices, curriculum development, and how all of that connects to student assessment. Whether it's personalized assessment or some standardized assessment, teacher-made tools, there's a plethora of assessments that teachers have. Now, admittedly, the high school has some limitations on the number of assessments and the types of assessments available, but particularly at K through 6, there's tons of assessments that teachers use to provide feedback to students. Is there still a degree of subjectivity in the grading process? Absolutely. And that's the move behind the standards-based report card to try to address some of that. But in terms of how progressive we are as a district, I think we rank with the best of them in terms of the quality of instruction that our teachers provide and the degree of assessment and connectivity that our students have with interfacing with other students vertically and horizontally to enhance their learning. Our teachers also work horizontally and vertically so that a third grade teacher knows what a fourth grade teacher is doing, and a fourth grade teacher knows what the expectations are when they get over here on this campus. And that's going to continue to evolve because there's constantly new technologies coming available, new strategies, and kids are showing up with extremely different learning styles. So a lot of time is being spent on teaching our teachers how to differentiate instruction so that it is not one size fits all in the classroom.
Just to clarify, how are we using AI to offer all of that? That was the question.
We have not gotten to that point yet. There are some teachers who are using it in many of the ways that are mentioned today. There are other teachers who are not yet comfortable with it. So what we are hoping to do, part of tonight is leading us in that direction, is developing policies and procedures that we can provide for our teachers to set parameters and expectations around AI.
Can I have a comment?
Oh, please.
Yes.
Yes.
So, in terms of feedback, and being prepared for the future, I think that was, has my high school prepared me for internet? Has my high school prepared me for AI? No. And I think the core of the feedback that we get here is what is the process, and I think Mike made a very good comment on that. What is the process that I apply, and the feedback in how the child is appropriating that process to be able to deal with the next internet, with the next AI. And when I'm looking at the feedback that I get in the cards, I prefer personally as a parent, this type of personal feedback, your child is not doing that, or she should improve that, more on the process and personal level, rather than an AI feedback on how the stats are of him. I think our interest is there, just my feedback.
Good point, thank you, sir. Another question?
Hi, my name is Sandeep Kumar. A general question whoever can answer. I heard quite a bit from the panelists the risks of AI. For example, we don't want students to write essays using generative AI. And some panelists did say that AI can be useful. Can somebody give me a more concrete ideas how generating AI can be useful to students in their learning process?
I have a list. I prepared a list based on actually the very good points that you have in the announcement for that. The questions, just to repeat if you haven't seen the poster, how can AI contribute to classroom, advanced and personalized learning, create and deliver actionable data and insights? So this is the list that I created. We could see targeted material for education based on corrections, right? So the kids get today their homework. I'm always asking, where did you fail? You know, what is the targeted thing? This can help the teachers and the student to have targeted material. Targeted curriculum based on vocation, right? I was lucky enough to have my kid in this school, and the English teacher came and told me, your daughter is very talented in English. I know you push her to science, but her talent isn't there. AI can help a lot of teachers to detect that, and maybe it's not very clear from it can help with the learning style, and I gave the example earlier. Introvert with single or small team versus an extrovert when they will be part of a larger team doing that. Presentation of material following the last research advances, right? I think you shared that having that material prepared by AI for you rather than spending weeks of generating, it can help with that. Insights on early issue identification with your child needs, special needs. So this was my list. Does it answer the question?
So it sounds like it's very useful to the teachers, but where is a case for students to use generative AI? Is there a case for that? To allow students to use generative AI in any?
One thing that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you know, Elise mentioned that she's used generative AI in her language class, which I was happy to hear about because, as you can probably tell, I'm a little nervous about generative AI. But that seems to me a wonderful use of it because now she's having a conversation in the world language, which is process oriented, and she's having that conversation with essentially a robot, but the robot is speaking that language, and so she's able to sort of interact. That's one example that might answer your question.
Rob, I know you wanted to chime in as well.
Yeah, definitely. Sandeep's question, how can you be useful to the students? Like, and I have, we have Gemini, and Gemini has the live interactive agent, and anyone for that matter, not focused on, right? You can ask questions, you can brainstorm, like this is your assistant, right? So on the fly, like, if the student is doing the project, they need research work, right? And they're struggling to find any information, or even to, structure their essays or whatever they want to write about that project, right? They can ask them, and they can brainstorm, have a very good conversation with them, and it basically guides you how you want to. Of course, in all of that, they can do with the teachers also.
Another question?
My name is Rajazan. I believe every professional role needs AI assistant. If you're a teacher, you need AI assistant. If you don't have it, think about a way to have it. If you don't have it, if someone cannot create it, find a way to create it yourself. If you're a programmer, you need an assistant. I think learner is a very difficult thing. Like the students, how do you learn with the AI help? But I think that's why we are here. I want you guys to think about this one, and also I want to ask a very specific question on our policy, the school policy. I don't think I can access any AI tool in school. Is that official policy, and are we looking to find a way to use it?
Jonathan, you want to take that?
That's actually what we're doing here. That's really the gist of part of why we're having these discussions, is because there's so many vast tools out there. So right now, the answer is, yeah, in school, they can't use AI pretty much. Students, teachers and staff, like I answered earlier, we've all collaborated and said, all right, these tools are meant for education. You can, and in many cases, you should be using these, like you're trying to point out. For students right now, we do have the door locked because we wanted to have these discussions and see, and I foresee it being very similar to how we addressed it with teachers, is this AI tool is meant for education. Maybe we're not going to open the door for ChatGPT. Maybe it's going to be magic school for students. I think part of what's important is making sure that this is meant for educational purposes. So it's really going to be about collaboration. I know that as a department, as a technical department, we're going to follow up, but it's really, this is all hands on deck situation where we want input from everyone, and then we'll make a decision. We're not doing anything in the bubble at this point. And I think that's really the right way to go about it as well. Not just for this technology, but all future technologies, is working together, administrators, teachers, staff. We all do different things, but supporting our students is really the biggest and it's why we're here. So let's make sure that our students have the tools to move forward, but let's make sure that they're right.
All right, last thought on this, Nilesh, and then we'll take the next question.
So I'll just make one point. So this is a policy out today, but the policy is going to continuously evolve because the changes are happening continuously. So this is not like a close and shut case. We will kind of evaluate the process as we go along. The steps will emerge as you see. So things can change. And even if you go today, I go to Columbia, you can't log into any of the ChatGPTs or generative AI models within if you're signed in as into the open model of domain of Columbia. So, but can it change? It can change. It can change tomorrow, and I think it will. And hopefully, and also just to remind everybody, the first draft of the AI policy is already there in the public domain. We will soon revisit that, and would love to have your feedback before we pass the final policy.
Hello, my name is Julie. I'm a parent of a first grader in Greenville. I'm also the head of product for Watsonx.ai, which is the IBM core AI engine. So basically the equivalent of ChatGPT. So you're well aware of all the benefits of AI and the limitations of it. So I wanted to, as a parent, share 3 perspectives for this group. One is, we keep talking about AI, but as Jerry started at the beginning, AI is coming from different sources. The AI that is powering of ChatGPT is different from the curated AI that is powering of Google Hub, right? So as a parent and educator, we need to have a good understanding of where the AI is coming from, what is the values of these AI providers. Do they care about filtering toxic information in the training data? Do they care about mitigating data? Do they expose the model to the darkest part of the internet that may come up through the interaction? These are the questions that every single one of us should ask when we compare ChatGPT to other ones, because the source of AI matters. The second part that I wanted to highlight is, as the parent and as the educator, it's on us to really understand these technologies, the limitation, and if we choose to stop it, like at our house, we have a no TV policy, but it's intentional. We can block it, but if we go conservative, because we haven't done our job to really understand the limitations and guide the students, it's on us. We have faith. So I feel like we should really understand limitations. We can make an intentional decision to block this or guide them, but it's on us to provide that guidance. And the third one is the ChatGPT that we are talking about, content generation, is the story of the past. This is a word that is evolving rapidly. You mentioned DeepSeek. Every day something new comes out. We don't want our kids to be ahead of us. We don't want to learn from them. We have to be ahead of them to set the guardrails for them in place, right? The AI of the past was content generation. The AI of this year is going to go to multimodal. You mentioned speech, audio, video, vision, images, reasoning, planning, action, taking actions. The AI is going to take actions on behalf of our kids. So we really need to understand what are the actions that the AI is taking. It's not just content generation. It's going well beyond that. And I think as a parent, it's on us if we fail to educate ourselves to stay ahead of it. Stay ahead of our kids. As we mentioned, AI is going to be used by our kids at school and outside school. We are responsible for outside school. We rely on our teachers to solve the education problem, but we personally are responsible for anything they are exposed to outside school.
Thank you for that. I think Grace and Jennifer also have
Hi, Justin Weiss, married to Mariam. And I want to say something maybe a little bit more provocative than what she said. I think if you project out maybe 10 years from now, this conversation that we're having tonight, it's going to feel a little bit ridiculous because of course AI is integrated in education. It's going to happen. And the reason I say this is because some of us have watched this movie already, where if you rewind about 30 to 40 years, we were having this conversation about calculators in the classroom, right? That was when I grew up, right? I remember my teachers telling me, these calculators, you're never going to be walking around every day in your life with a calculator. So, all the questions that Mariam just said are absolutely important. It's incumbent on us as parents to understand the technology, to understand what the risks are, also to understand what the benefits are. These are all the right questions to be asking, but it's sort of a foregone conclusion. Education will be transformed by AI, and we as a school district, we need to lean into that.
Thank you for that.
My question actually, I think, feeds off of that quite nicely because this is not, this is not language, sorry. Because I'm very intrigued by something you said, Thomas, about how the Harvard case studies are
AI proof.
AI proof. And I think, you know, Michael said this, Elise said this, there's lots of there's core skills that we want high schools to have. You said this, your high school didn't prepare you to do. So what are the qualities or characteristics that are making these Harvard case studies AI proof? And are there learnings that our teachers can use to make sure our kids are learning the process of thinking so that they are prepared to go into the world?
Yeah, so, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, okay. The core aspect of the Harvard case study teaching methodology is all about critical thinking. And when it's weird, I teach in a lecture hall just like this with like 60 to 80 kids. And I tell them, when you're doing these Harvard case studies, there's 80 of you, and we can have 80 different answers and they can all be correct, right? It's about how well and how creative you develop your solution to the problem and how well you can defend it. And you can go as nuts as you want in these case studies. What makes your answer wrong is your lack of your ability to defend it. But that's when we get to the college level. So yeah, I think like AI is going to kind of change some things fundamentally. And again, it goes back to like the curriculum design and how do we even think of a homework assignment, right? I'm just gonna pick on my daughter, like, yeah, I could assign her an essay to write about like a science essay or whatever on butterflies, like that would be awesome, right, on metamorphosis. She'll just put that in ChatGPT, get the answer, done, right? 5 minutes worth of work, done. But like, is there a way to help her get the same learning outcome by just changing what we think about the assignment in the first place? I don't know if we have the answer yet, but we have to tackle that problem first because it's more about how you design the homework, the assignments moving forward, and you have to, again, I know even if we have a policy of banning AI, you can't ban AI. Like, it's going to be at home. It's going to be on your kid's phone, on the iPad, just whatever devices they have or don't have, or from a friend at the public library, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I would think about it, and it's a tough problem. Like, I am not jealous of being a superintendent in 2025.
I will tell you, I was in a pre-calculus class today. Spent a period in the class, and it was not my forte, but I was thinking, what must it be like? What would have been like for me to be a student in a class that I did not do particularly well in as a student, and had the benefit of the technology that I could have gone home and tried to figure out some of the concepts and various methodologies to solve equations, tools that I didn't have that kids have today. And I think the key to that is helping our teachers understand how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So we're not just asking kids, what do you know? We're asking them, how do you know? How do you evaluate what you know? How do you confirm and validate what you know? Not just that they understand the answer.
Yeah, I'd like to, because I think the question was more, what are the fundamental principles of education that we understand and we want to carry over, right, despite technology, AI, and so on? I think that was your question. And personally, I think, if I'm looking at my education, my favorite classes were those where I had all the materials available, all the calculators, and the problem, asked me to put together all this to give a solution. I hated the ones where I had to memorize, okay? But if we are looking 30 years later, and I date myself, we still have classes where we have to memorize, we still have classes where we have this, and we additionally have other classes with AI and so on. So I think we carry over those principles and all those process aspects and ethical aspects in our education. I don't think AI is going to erase them. We are adding to our methodology and our tools something to make it better. That's how I see AI.
Yeah, I appreciate
Sure, time for a couple more questions?
Sure, I'm watching the clock. We're good.
Sorry, we're not going to use the microphone just because of the feedback, so if you can just raise your voice a little bit. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Murad Mia. I spent my career financial industry, running quantitative tools using a lot of machine learning and AI in the process. So thank you, Dr. Hamilton, and the board and the for putting this together. Very timely topic. Just listening through the panel and all the discussion, I think it is a broad outline of what is the destination of this discussion is coming, seems to be forming. So to just simplify things, I think the generative AI has exceeded the capabilities of all of the models that have come forward, mostly because of the very broad knowledge base that it absorbs, the high level of flexibility that's able to interact and respond to questions and queries and produce substantive answers before approaching and possibly over time. But if you're thinking about it simplistically, I think it is essentially it's like having a tutor or a very knowledgeable friend always available, take your questions, it has an extensive amount of knowledge, is willing to discuss things with you at any time and for any length of time. And so clearly having a friend like that or a tutor like that is a substantial assistance in the education process. So I think fundamentally the question is, do we prevent our students from having such a thing or acknowledging that they have it in that off campus? I think that's a self-evident answer. I think the answer cannot be they should use it. However, contrary to what Thomas said earlier, yes, it's unavoidable in many ways and should not be. However, the risk of significant cognitive overload, from Jerry just used that line, is very high. It is very easy for these systems to actually do the work for us, for us. So I think the challenge seems to be fundamentally isn't to block the system, but to make sure that these systems do not do the work that the students seem to be doing to develop the learning skills and that basically circles back to what Thomas was saying at the beginning from first minutes of this, is that how do we design learning tasks where we can tell the students what level of AI engagement is at the level
and appropriate,
and make sure that they stick to that. And I think that's the entire challenge. It's not whether or not AI can be allowed, it will engage the space. And the question is, how do we make sure it doesn't do the work for us, for the students? And to that, so some of the answers covered this are sure. The color is I think the answer fundamentally is acquiring knowledge is very useful to have people like that helping you. However, executing and delivering a project, now that cannot be fixed. Whatever the project is to come up with a unique analysis of a very specific case, or creating something like a robot, or some tasks that require an active participation output of the student where the AI is helping but not doing the work. I don't see any way around banning AI for English. I think that's like that's a product is where you do that. I see them. But I think there's a lot of spaces where it can help but not impede needs.
Thank you. While you're taking the next question, Kyle, I want to share with you, I think we have an incredible talent pool in our community. And I definitely, based on what I'm hearing, I think there has to be more discussion about this. When I put the quest out for the question out for parents who want to be a part of this process. Within 2 hours, I had 30 people who responded with extremely impressive credentials, experience, and background. So I do think we have to figure out a way to get more voices into this conversation from people who have these varied experiences, yours in particular, on this subject, so that we can get more answers and solve the current issue that educators face today. Go ahead, Kyle.
Do we want to hear from Finn before we take the next question?
Oh, I didn't see your hand, Finn. I'm sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
So when I collected my data, I got some really good questions. So I listed some of them down here. So one big question I got that I think is really good is how are we able to make sure students are learning to write well and absorb content when AI tools are at their disposal?
That's a great question, Finn. And how big was your sample, Finn?
What do you mean?
How many people responded?
So total, in terms of responses, I got about 150. I didn't get too many questions, but I rounded up what I think are like the most important. So there's that. Another question was, will there be a class dedicated to AI in the future? How does it know to write? How can we identify if an image or writing is AI or not? How accurate is it? And will the government set boundaries or take precautions on AI in the future?
Excellent. Wow. Now you see why he's on my advisory.
Thank you, Finn. That was excellent. So this question is for Henry or Elise. My name is Lucas Chaffee. I'm a parent of 2 children at Sealy. You have a lot of parents here tonight listening to what you're saying. What advice would you have for parents? What do you wish your friends' parents told your friends or that your parents told you? Thank you.
I would, if anything, I would just make sure parents knew about the uses of AI and how sometimes it can be used unsafely, and that if I had parents tell their kids anything, it'd be to be safe around AI and to make sure you know what, and even to just research just for 5 minutes just on what it is and what, and is it really going to help you in the long run?
Henry, Elise?
So what I would say is, I think it's really important to be educated on how it can be used, and I think there's many misconceptions, like especially with the idea that it's only good for generating text and not necessarily for math. And I think like, for instance, with ChatGPT, they rolled out the ability for it to execute code so you can get exact mathematical answers. So I think if more people knew these small little things, you could see this more as a personal tutor. And also with the idea of hallucinations and getting like bad answers, I think there's also on top of that the idea that the student also has prior knowledge, so you can reason what answers are applicable and what may not work. So I think utilizing it as an aid and as a tutor is probably the most important thing that I see for parents.
For me, I think, I know I talked about this earlier, I think I'll kind of a really good metaphor like with the car. If you just give kids the keys to the car and you don't tell them the risks of driving or like how to drive, you're going to end up with a lot more car accidents and a lot more issues. So you really need to, whether or not it's on the parents or schools to really teach kids how to use AI, someone needs to show them what to do with it and also what not to do with it and what the risks are with using it in certain ways.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sean Bersoni. I'm a parent of a 7th grader, so I know Finn very well. Good job, Finn. My question is, do we have a working group on the faculty and staff about evaluating the surveillance tools to see how kids are using AI? Because let's not live in a bubble here. The kids are using AI. And whether they're using it for image generation, assistance on writing an essay, not subverting the process, understanding that the final product is, maybe less important, but the process is what counts. And as far as it being a class, it feels to me like it's going to be more of a tool that's a horizontal as opposed to a vertical. So it's going to be something like, it's a skill that you have to acquire. So prompting an AI engine whereby you're getting answers as opposed to using a Google where you've traditionally done and just searched and you click on a link, you try and read and you figure out what's relevant with regards to what you're trying to do. So what I'm trying to ask is, A, is there a working group evaluating software solutions right now? And if so, who's involved in that? Are parents involved? Is it only faculty? If so, who? And then, with regards to a rollout plan, what are we talking about here? Like, these things are evaluating very quickly. It's harder for a community to make big decisions like this in a snap when these developments are occurring at a pace that we might not be comfortable rolling out our solution.
Well, I'm in a think tank with other superintendents, and we are identifying what school districts, and there aren't any in our immediate area, who have displayed any exemplary experience with it. People are in various places, obviously, and that will always be the case, but there hasn't been, so far, this group only started in the summer, August, September, August. There has not been a group that we have found that we have said, this is the place that's doing it really, really well. The closest we came to is a district in central part of New Jersey, Keesac, New Jersey, somewhere in that area. But even they, and it's a technical school, by the way, but even they have not totally embraced the best practices. So once we identify what those exemplars are, we will then start training our teachers and creating partnerships and mimicking practices that make sense for us and growing at a pace that's consistent with where our teachers are and their comfortability. But all of this will be governed by the guidance principles established by a district policy.
There is also a faculty group that works with Paul, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Paul, and I know, what did he say? Sharon, yeah.
Is there a working group that parents can?
Not yet. That's what we're going to work on establishing.
And then, because there's already like Khan Academy is working on something with Microsoft and that's where a lot of, I'm sorry?
Conmigo?
Yeah, Conmigo, exactly, where it's like a tutor designed to work with you on your particular machine, so it's one-on-one as an aid, not as a replacement. I forgot who on the panel, or maybe it was another parent that said, bots aren't going to replace teachers. I agree with that, but like the tutoring aspect is really where I think we're going to unlock a lot of
I think you're right.
value for our kids.
So I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I'm an educator in the area, and I'm really focused on the professional development around all of this. I feel like we're trying to fit AI into our classroom and into our assessments. I don't think that's possible. It's too vast and it's too complex. And as we kind of re-examine our assessments and come backwards to the new world that's existing, I'm wondering if we should immediately start at least to awaken that curiosity in kids, to show them what hallucinations are, how LLMs really affect the output of the data. And just once we awaken that curiosity, I think they will move the way faster than us, because they will question the output that they get. And then it doesn't matter which LLM or which platform you're working on, because you've already got why doesn't it make sense? And then we're not bypassing the critical thinking aspects, our development, our brain development. We don't want to become slaves to this technology. So if we learn to question it now immediately, which is all that we can do as adults and as children, why don't we just get on it?
All right, we're going to start wrapping up. I see a few more hands, and I don't want you to leave without getting your question out, so we're going to start wrapping up.
Thank you. I'm Pankaj. My daughter is right here. She's in high school. I don't have a question, but I have more of a comment. I personally think that we're too late in getting onto the AI bandwagon. Probably this seminar, which is great that at least we are having it, we could have had it one year earlier. Or whatever. I think we're still in good hands. I completely go back to what Phil mentioned based on his research, first of all. Where are kids using AI? They're using it at home, they're using it outside of school, and it's mostly the seniors who are using it right now.
nobody is talking about AI in the school, and that's, I think, a big problem area. A lot of others have also spoken about it, that you've got to be aware about it. You've got to know where it can help. You've got to know where it cannot help. So the overall education system has to completely accept and coexist with AI. I think Jerry had a very good point. You need a framework or where you can use it, where you cannot use it. There could be assignments where you allow kids to use AI, experiment with it. Michael has a great point. Give kids a writing assignment. They cannot use AI, they cannot use any tools. It's a great place where you can avoid using AI. I'll also challenge that you should also be aware of where you can use it. He had a great example that you can sniff a paragraph and figure out that it's written by AI. That's an important skill for kids to have as well. If something is written by AI that is not self-generated, you should be able to pick that up and you should be able to figure that out. Elise had a great example that it's not just getting the key of the car, it's getting to know what to do with it, how to drive it, how not to drive it, and things like that. So I think overall awareness has to go in every single aspect. It's again going back to the calculator example. We were all told not to use a calculator. Well, look at it, all of us are carrying one. So you've got to be aware about it, you've got to know what are the uses, how best to use it. So it's definitely a sign, but to avoid it is absolutely not the right way to go.
Well, I do want to just say one thing. It's not that no one is talking about it. We have teachers talking about it and teachers using it and using it regularly. We have not standardized it and we have not communicated expectations around it. And so what we need to do is figure out where we want to go with it so we can set those parameters and provide teachers with the training they need so that there are clear expectations. Because like with anything, you have teachers who are proficient and teachers who are novices. So we want to make sure that we are training our teachers and moving everyone across a continuum of proficiency that they use it appropriately.
I totally agree. The teachers have to be part of the whole learning experiment. All of us are learning right now as well as we adapt to this new technology.
For sure.
I'll make one comment
Yes,
on your point that we are late. And I would like to share that if you look at the whole industry and the maturity with respect to how our products are certified to provide the level of accuracy and trustworthy that we need, I don't think we are there. So why would we expose our children to that? I mean, look at the entertainment, at the movie industry. We came up with a way to rate the movies, and schools reflect that in usage of those movies within the education or not. And I think we need to reach that level of maturity. It's not that we need to expose our children at this early age. They can always get educated on more. I think on the AI side, like with anything else, would you allow your kid to experience self-driving car? The technology is out there, right? You prefer, I think, that to mature first and to have some level of certainty before exposing the children. And I think this is the context, and I appreciate the cautiousness here.
Good, thank you.
One more?
Yep, one more, and then there's just 2 here, and that will be the last two.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Thank you, panel. This is a fantastic discussion. So my name is Ely. I'm a physician, so I'm completely terrible at this. And not going to get this. But for the students with that handwriting, they're cool with me. So what I'm getting from putting on my healthcare hat on is what I feel is that there's a tool. There's a lot of great pluses, but it's dangerous, right? And there's a lot of negatives that's impactful. That's why we're here. And I hear a lot of people in the audience saying, hey, the parents should teach this, and the parents should get involved, and parents should, and that's why we're here. That's why I got kids here with me. But at the same time, it's not an even playing field, even with parents, right? Again, as a physician, I'm very educated in some things, but not very educated in what we're discussing here. I should be better. So I guess my thought is, are there models? And you guys have kind of talked about this, where we've looked at it almost like health class, right? Almost like responsibility in tech. And I think there's classes like that. I've heard about classes like that. What are the dangers, hallucinations, educating our kids as their minds develop, right, from middle school and onwards, on these terms. So that when this we're trying to raise good folks, moral adults with, great understanding the process of becoming, of learning. So I'm wondering, are there these models where, again, we can teach the positives and the negatives at a young age? Maybe a dedicated class or something like that. And then, can we institute such a model at this meeting?
Jonathan, you want to repeat your point?
Yes, so we actually have something similar, it just doesn't include AI yet. We actually have exactly what you're talking about. And I forget which grade they started in, but it's in elementary school. It's called digital citizenship. It's almost exactly what you said. How to be a good citizen online. So this eventually would just add on to that component. But yeah, our elementary schools, our teachers teach media literacy and digital citizenship. They go hand in hand. So we're not going to give you a Chromebook and say, here's access to the internet. We're going to say, here's access to the internet. Here's how to use it responsibly. And more than just responsibly, how to use it respectfully amongst your peers and online. You don't know who you're communicating with all the time, but what's important is that you're respectful. You know what to look for in terms of what content you shouldn't be on, what you should be saying, what you shouldn't be saying, the concept that what you didn't have to worry about a long time ago was what you write on the internet, yeah, that's forever. Yeah, I don't care when you wrote it, someone can pull it up at some point and use it against you. Look at, if you've got to apply for a job right now, they're going to look at your Facebook 10 years ago. So all these things exist, and Edgemont's done a really, really great job with this. And this will just be an additional component to that over time.
Thomas, and then
So just to kind of share like an analogy, and I think this goes like thematically what I think we want from our kids. I love that you're a doctor. I tried pretending to be a doctor by using ChatGPT. My daughter, this is true. My daughter was sick last year. She had like a cough, a fever, whatever. I'm an idiot. I'm putting all the symptoms in ChatGPT, trying to get a diagnosis. And I'm getting some crazy stuff out from the tool. And then I'm like, you know what, screw this. I'm gonna go to PM Pediatrics, take her to urgent care. And, they gave her the right diagnosis, and I showed the pediatrician like, hey, this is what ChatGPT gave me. Like, was I even close? And he's like, you're an idiot. Don't ever use this ever again. But I tell this story a lot now because there's value in being a subject matter expert, right, in your field. And I learned the lesson the hard way, and I think our kids will too, right? Like, there's no way you can fake intelligence with ChatGPT. Like, you need that domain expertise in whatever thing you do want to focus in on in life, and even if it's just like an elementary course on physics, chemistry, whatever, like, you need to be good at that first before you even earn the right to use AI with it, right? And I don't know how we teach that lesson, but I've taught my kids that lesson, and I kind of have fun, like, give them experiments too. Like my 9-year-old wants to, like, she's telling me she wants to go to culinary school, which I love. She's a huge foodie. Great. So let's take a thing that you love making, like quesadillas, and let's take like a random ingredient, because she also loves the TV show Chopped. And like let's figure out how we can take some of these random ingredients and put them together, and let's see like if it works or not. So like this is how I'm trying to use it in the real world with my kids, but like my daughters also feel like, oh my goodness, like I have to actually learn more now about like cooking and like what ingredients go well versus don't go well together, to make something beautiful happen. So I think ultimately like that's what people in the real world are learning. Like I can't be a pretend doctor. My wife's an attorney. I can't be a pretend attorney. And at the same time, my wife can't be like a pretend, sales expert, right? That's my domain of expertise. So when I use that with ChatGPT, oh my goodness, I'm creating some great like sales training content for my company, for my team, etc. And that's the lesson like we're gonna have to teach our kids one way or another. Like AI is great, but it's not gonna like shortcut you into being any of these things in real life. Like you're gonna have to do the hard work up front, and only then with AI it's gonna like accelerate your expertise in that arena. But hopefully that story resonates with you then.
That's great. I hope we can integrate it into this great program. And then now that you mentioned about it, I recall it, it was great. Like our kids came home and they're talking about this. It's great. And hopefully, I think that's really logical, like that integrate AI into this wonderful program.
And to piggyback a little bit off of what you just mentioned, the scaffolding aspect of I had to learn this to go here to learn the next thing before I can use that tool. Other people have mentioned it already, but the famous, when I was a kid, which same thing for me, teacher said I couldn't use a calculator, I wouldn't walk around with it in my pocket, and now we all have cell phones. And they stopped teaching math, right? I know that if anyone asks me a math question, I'll pop it on my cell phone right now. But when my son goes to school, I want him to learn math as much as he can. Regardless of the fact that he's going to have that calculator in his pocket one day, he still needs to have that pre-existing knowledge to get the best of it.
All right, let me make sure we have time for the last two questions.
Yeah, so I'm Von Gita, I'm an 8th grader at Edgemont. So AI in school is looked over sort of like negatively. Like when we have a project or something and my friends come to me and they say, I use AI for this and don't tell anybody. I'm just thinking in my head, like, if I did that, I would probably get in trouble for doing that. And I was just wondering, in the near future, will that change the outlook of how AI is looked at by teachers and students change? And, like, will we learn how to use it appropriately?
Absolutely, and that's what triggered this, because kids have been telling me that they're using it, they don't want the teachers to know they're using it, and they're hiding that they're using it, and so absolutely, that was a big catalyst for why I thought we needed to push this conversation. So thank you for saying it out loud.
So my name is Liana Fernandez, and I have a question about the risk. I know that there's risk of children not exercise your brain muscle enough, but there's very risk for their mental health, like especially for interactive AI. Could that be the case to have some mental illness or what? I'm just curious, so I would like to.
I can answer part of that.
What do you think?
So the answer is yes. There are health implications just the same way, but it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years of full data and studies, and at this point the entire world, but the state, the cities, everyone's going to gather the data and see, all right, how are students, if you want to look at the data numbers, are their grades better, are they worse? How do we evaluate our students in general? Just like Dr. Hamilton put these surveys out, what should an Edgemont graduate look like? Are they going to, in 10 years, still look like that? Are we going to achieve those goals once we unlock that door of AI? So the answer is we don't know the full implications, but just like Facebook started off nice that I got in touch with my long-lost aunt, we see 10 years later, it's about 10 years now, that it opened the door for social media to have these impacts on society, and as well as individuals where, the last social media big one was TikTok. Nobody expected it, but these quick dopamine hits that they had on kids, and I didn't know about TikTok until after 2 years, and I'm in the tech department. Students knew about it way before I did. They were spending 6 hours a day on it, and it had a real life impact on the way they learn, the things they do, the way they speak, and it really, from a scientific point, has to do with dopamine and brain development. So the answer is going to be yes, but we don't know how.
Well, we're losing people, which tells me we went too far. But please join me in thanking our panelists. Particularly staff members who gave me another night out of their lives and away from their families to be here. Thank you for doing that. There is a draft policy on board docs on the city's website. Go into policy draft and you can weigh in on the policy that is in its first draft form. And this is your opportunity to have input on that policy before it is revised for the second reading and the adoption. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for participating in this conversation. And I hope you found it meaningful as I did.